Welcome on in here to Garage Takes. If you haven't done so already and you're a Michigan football fan or you're into the Detroit Lions, hit that follow button, subscribe, like, comment. Let us know down below what you're thinking about these teams. This specific episode, Brant, I want to talk about Michigan football and where they stand in the Big Ten right now. You sent me kind of your thoughts of the top of the Big Ten at the end of the year, and it actually kind of surprised me a bit. So I think we may have some hot takes here, but I want to know directly from you, who's at the top of the Big Ten this year, why, and where does Michigan stack up against those guys?
Yeah, Dave, I think the obvious ones, Penn State, Ohio State, probably Oregon. Those are the three that are coming into the season that people just just are buying in on the top 10. We just got the AP rankings out, right? All three of those teams, I believe, are in the top 10. And one of the things, Dave, is the returning talent for Penn State is probably, I don't know, top five in the nation that they got coming back, and they added some transfer wide receivers. That's going to be massive. Um, so Penn State's looking for a big year, and one of the things is, Dave, we talk about all the time on Garage Takes is, can James Franklin win a big game? You look at the two games he won in the playoffs last year, not against exactly upper echelon teams. I mean, they were playoff teams, but at the end of the day, it's just he falls flat again against Notre Dame. Can't get it done in the semifinal and can't push his team into the national championship. And Drew Aller comes back for a senior year. That I think in alone in itself, obviously they land in the top two. And then Ohio State, they are just, they stack recruiting class after recruiting class, so they're going to be fine there, no matter what, if it's going to be Julian Sayin or Lincoln Kineholz. They have a battle going on down there. And then you take a look at Oregon, and they about run the transfer portal just about as good as anybody, but they're replacing a lot on their offensive line. So you look at Michigan and where they stack up against those top three, and I love Michigan's chances, Dave. I love their chances in this Big Ten. One of the things that I think that they potentially have the best in the Big Ten at is their defense. If you look at the way that this defense stacks up, a lot of returning players, maybe not returning starters as much, but a lot of guys that saw the field last year, and the defensive line rotations are going to be like 7, 8, 10 deep. We're talking maybe we get 10 deep rotation on that defensive line. A guy like Zeke Berry got a lot of playing time last year. Jair Hill, same thing. So I expect the corner spots to be locked down. Dave, you touched on all the transfers last week. We don't have to go over that again, but I love the way that they stack up. You start looking around the Big Ten, maybe some dark horses. You talk about Nebraska. Maybe this could be a year that they finally break through. I love Raiola. I think he absolutely has a chance to be in the Heisman race, and potentially, his draft stock going into next year could be massive. Dave, is there any teams that you like maybe outside of the top 3 or 4 that you think could be dark horse potential here?
Not really. I don't. I mean, truthfully, I look at this as Penn State. Look, the one thing that I like about Penn State, Brant, is not their head coach. I mean, truthfully, because that is always going to be my argument against Penn State is they haven't done it. When the stage gets big, when the lights get bright, Penn State tends to fold. They tend to not show up. They had an easy path to a national championship last year. They couldn't get it done. Now, the one thing that I'll say about them is they bring back Drew Aller. They bring back Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. They bring back their wide receiver transfers coming in. Brant, what Penn State has, to me, look at the last 2 national champions, Michigan and Ohio State. What do those 2 teams have in common? It was like that chip on the shoulder of we were so close, we were right there, and we probably should have been there, but we didn't get it done. So we're going to bring the band back. And that's what you have going on right now in Happy Valley with Penn State. And so do I think they're going to get it done? No, not necessarily. I'm not saying I'm a believer in them, but what do I think in terms of the makeup of that team, the identity of that team. It's we've been there, we've done it, and I forget how many starters they returned. I mean, it's an insane amount, but they came back, and that's exactly what happened in the 2023 year when Blake Corum and all those guys came back for Michigan, and last year with Ohio State all coming back to go win a national championship. And so I do think the pieces are there. I think with Oregon, I just believe in A, the recruiting, B, Dan Lanning, and C, that they have the it factor, if you will, to just be a perennial Big Ten contender, national championship contender. Now, they do bring in a quarterback who has not been proven yet in Dante Moore out of Detroit here, and we'll have to see how that shakes out. You know, Dylan Gabriel is obviously on his way. He had Bo Nix before that. We don't know what a 6-year quarterback, you know, we don't know what that system looks like without some experienced guy like that coming into a Dan Lanning system in Oregon. Dante Moore, I know, is extremely talented. I'll be curious to see what they do there. I mean, and then Ohio State, Brant, I just, you look at the AP top 25 rankings and where they stand, and it's like, I look at them, I'm like, dude, they just lost a ton of guys. It was like what Michigan had in 2023. They all exit to the NFL and they leave. But Ohio State, hate them, but I'll give them their props. They, over the last 50 years, Brant, there hasn't been a program that has been just more consistently good and on top than Ohio State. And so, yeah, do we know what what Julian Sain looks like? Do we know what, I forget the other guy's name, looks like, Keen Holes or whatever? No, I don't. But they have the two best players in college football. They've got Jeremiah Smith. They've got Caleb Downs. Yeah. To me, those are the top two players on both sides of the football and in all of college football. And so, yeah, I think they're going to be there. And so, like, for me, I look at these next tiers, and it's like, go ahead.
Let me ask you a few teams. I want to pick your brain a little bit because the teams that I did send you, I know I sent you. There's probably a good second tier here that can bump into the first tier, and I feel like those teams are probably Washington, definitely one of them. I feel like Minnesota potentially could be one of those teams. And Dave, everybody, it seems like the darling of the Big Ten right now happens to be Illinois. With Altmaier coming back, is there any three of those teams that do anything for you that you think they can get to the top tier?
Not the two teams you just named. I'm not with you on that. I need to know more about why you have Minnesota in there. I look at Illinois and I look at Indiana, I mean, the fact that Illinois is going to bring back Luke Altmaier, I'm not a believer in that. They're about to go compete for a national championship. Do I think that they're going to be there to be a 3-loss team in that conversation? Yeah, I do. Indiana, Chris Cignetti, dude, I mean, he's been everywhere Cignetti has been. He's won. And hate him, love him, whatever, he gets it done. Look, I mean, he brings in, what's that, Mendoza from California, be his new quarterback.
Correct.
And I just, those would be my next tier of teams. Now let's get to what we really want to talk about, right? Which is, where does Michigan fit into all of that? Brant, I do my best, and you know this, I think we know this after doing this podcast for several years now, take off the maize and blue glasses and all of that. You're not going to convince me that Michigan's not in that conversation within Illinois, within Indiana, even within Oregon, even within Ohio State, even with the Penn State. I think you put this Michigan team and how deep this defense is, and Brant, you touched on it at the beginning. This defense is going to be top 10, I think, is the floor. I think top 5, top 3 is probably the ceiling of this defense. They are deep. They are strong on the front of that defensive line. The linebackers and Jayshawn Barham and Ernest Hausman and the safeties that you bring back. Now, cornerbacks, one position I have a question on, But that defense is going to be elite, Brand. This is year 2 of Wink Martindale. This isn't the whole, let's take 6, 7, 8 games to figure this new system out and a new defensive coordinator. They're going to come in and be ready to hit the ground running. Now, the offense is a big question. We'll see what Bryce Underwood looks like, which I'm assuming is going to be the starter. We'll have to wait and see. But for people saying Michigan is some tier below all of these guys, like, oh, okay, yeah, it's Oregon, it's Ohio State, it's Penn State, and then it's like Michigan, Indiana, Illinois. I strongly disagree with that. It would not surprise me at all, Brant. Sorry. It would not surprise me at all if Michigan plays for a Big Ten championship this year and makes the college football playoff. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Do you think that Michigan has a tougher schedule or an easier schedule in the eyes of the Big Ten this year?
Oh, I think they have an easy schedule. I think, look at who they don't play. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Penn State. They don't play Illinois. They don't play Indiana. These are all the teams that we're talking about, right? Yeah, they play USC on the road. They play Washington at home. Outside of that, Brent, yes, we know that week 2 is going to be a battle, having to travel to Norman to play Oklahoma. They've got a favorable schedule. Now, they don't have the usual 8 home games in Ann Arbor that Michigan normally has. They go every other week. They don't play back-to-back home games all year. However, Michigan, their schedule, it sets them up to look at, why can't they compete for a Big Ten championship?
Yeah, Dave, another miss on that schedule is no Iowa. And I feel like that's a team that you don't want to see.
Oregon and Penn State got to travel there, right?
Yeah, Oregon and Penn State both have to travel.
They got to go to Kinnick.
Yeah. And that's one of those that if you draw them at night, good luck. That is an absolute hornet's nest. And I think I will just end with saying this, Dave. The Big Ten, I think there's going to be a team like Indiana that comes out of nowhere this year and makes the playoffs. I know that a lot of people are sold on Oregon. I think Oregon's due for a step back. I think that Dante Moore is an unproven commodity. And I know Indiana has a quarterback that's also unproven. And around the league, it's going to be that way. But I definitely think Illinois can slip in there. I know you're not high on some of the other teams. Dude, USC could get in there. There's a lot of teams in this Big Ten when you're talking about 18 teams that really can make that rise. And that's why we love the college football expansion, the 12 teams. I know it might go to 16 here in the near future, but obviously I think the Big Ten is set for some surprises this year.